From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Karen Rebo. The Trudeau Liberals intend to move quickly to get a Ukraine free trade bill back up for debate and pressure the Conservatives to support it as members of Parliament return to the House of Commons today. The legislation to implement an updated free trade agreement between Canada and Ukraine became political fodder in the fall when the Tories voted against it in a protest against carbon pricing. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre told his caucus yesterday his focus will be on passing a private member's bill to offer farmers a carve-out to the federal carbon price.
Conservatives will fight throughout this session to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime.
Ukraine has had a carbon price since 2011 and Canada since 2019, but the updated free trade agreement calls on both to promote carbon pricing. A ceremony commemorating the deadly shooting attack on a Quebec City mosque 7 years ago today is scheduled to take place this evening. It was January 29th, 2017, when 6 Muslim men were killed and 5 others were wounded when a gunman burst into the Quebec City Islamic Cultural Center shortly after evening prayers. Organizers say tonight's live-streamed ceremony is intended to honor the memory of the dead and to show support for their families and for survivors of the attack. Prayers for the victims and first responders were heard at a church service in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories yesterday, just days after 6 people died and a 7th was injured in a tragic plane crash.
The charter plane had just taken off from Fort Smith Tuesday morning when it hit the ground and caught fire. Father Aaron Sahlberg of St. Joseph's Anglican Church addressed the crash at his weekly service yesterday and offered a prayer for the victims and first responders.
I work closely with enough of them to know what they saw and what they experienced on that day is traumatic.
Father Sahlberg says he's worried that people will try and move on too quickly instead of speaking to others about how they feel. Bill Graveland, The Canadian Press, Fort Smith.
The head of the Hellas Skiing Company that was involved in last Monday's fatal helicopter crash north of Terrace, BC, says the bodies of the 3 victims have been recovered. John Forrest, president of Northern Escape Heliskiing, says the RCMP and Terrace search and rescue officials led the effort yesterday. Retrieving the victims, identified as 3 Italian nationals, had been hampered last week due to poor weather. And there is new hope in the decades-long search to solve the mystery of what happened to aviation pioneer Amelia Earhart. The first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic disappeared after setting out on a journey around the world in 1937. A sonar image now shows what some say could be part of her Lockheed 10E Electra aircraft, sitting just over 5,000 meters down on the ocean floor. This is the Canadian Press. In sports, the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers will meet in Super Bowl 58, set for February 11th in Las Vegas. The Chiefs advanced to Sin City by beating the Baltimore Ravens 17-10 yesterday in the AFC Championship. The 49ers punched their ticket to the big game by erasing a 24-7 halftime deficit and rallied to beat the visiting Detroit Lions 34-31 in the NFC Championship. The Ottawa Senators will be aiming to snap a 2-game losing skid when they host the Nashville Predators in the lone game on tonight's NHL schedule. The Preds are coming off a 4-1 loss Saturday against the red-hot Edmonton Oilers. Busy night in the NBA with 12 games on the schedule. The Toronto Raptors are off until tomorrow night when they'll play the Bulls in Chicago. The Raptors lost their 5th straight yesterday as the Atlanta Hawks scored with 1 second left in regulation to knock them off 126-125. From the Canadian Press, I'm Karen Rebo.